In April 2021, one of the key architects of Neuralink walked away. No drama, no lawsuit, just a tweet. 3 sentences. Gone. Max Hodak had spent years helping build what many call the most ambitious brain-computer interface project in history. He was a co-founder, he was president, he understood the technology as well as almost anyone alive. And then he started something new, something he believes goes further. To understand why that matters, you need to understand what Neuralink is actually doing, and what it isn't. Neuralink's device, the N1 chip, threads roughly 1,000 electrodes into brain tissue. It can read neural signals with enough precision that a paralyzed patient named Nolan Arbaugh used it in early 2024 to control a computer cursor with his thoughts alone. That is not a small thing, but Neuralink's current mission is therapeutic. Restore function to people who've lost it. Paralysis, ALS, communication disorders. The FDA gave them breakthrough device designation for exactly that purpose. Max Hodak's new company, Science Corporation, also starts in medicine. But the stated destination is different. He said publicly that he believes the eventual endpoint of this technology is cognitive enhancement, not restoring what humans had, but expanding what humans are. Someone is now funding that belief, and the strategy he's chosen to get there is not what anyone expected. Hodak joined Neuralink in 2017, 1 year after it was founded. He came from a life sciences robotics background. He had co-founded a company called Transcriptic, a cloud robotics platform for automating lab work. He understood precision hardware. He understood how to build a deep tech team from nothing. At Neuralink, he wasn't ceremonial. He was deeply embedded in the technical roadmap. Among his most significant contributions, helping design the surgical robot that implants Neuralink's electrode threads. That robot is one of the company's more underappreciated achievements. The threads are thinner than a human hair. Threading them into living brain tissue with the precision required to avoid blood vessels and minimize damage is not something a human surgeon can do reliably. The robot can. In April 2021, Hodak left. His tweet read, he was proud of the team and excited for what comes next. Standard departure language. But when a co-founder and president of a company like Neuralink exits quietly and starts from scratch, people in the industry pay attention. Because that kind of move is almost never just personal. Science Corporation's first major product is not a brain implant. It's an eye implant. In 2022, Science Corp acquired a French biotech called Pixium Vision. Pixium had spent years developing a device called Prima, a subretinal photovoltaic implant. It sits beneath the retina. It converts light into electrical signals, bypassing the damaged photoreceptors that cause central vision loss in conditions like dry age-related macular degeneration. AMD is one of the leading causes of irreversible blindness in people over 60. There is currently no treatment that restores central vision once it's gone. Prima is designed to do exactly that. The mechanism is elegant. The implant contains thousands of tiny photovoltaic pixels. You wear a pair of specialized glasses that project near-infrared light onto the back of the eye. The chip converts that light into electrical pulses. The remaining healthy retinal cells carry those signals to the brain. The brain learns over time to interpret them. Prima received FDA breakthrough device designation. That's not approval. That means the FDA agreed the potential benefit is significant enough to accelerate the review process. The pipeline is moving. This is Science Corp's first commercial foothold, a defined patient population, a clear unmet need, a regulatory path already in motion. It's a product that can generate revenue and clinical data before the company touches anything near the cortex. Here's where Hodak's thinking diverges from Neuralink's, not in methods, but in framing. Neuralink's current public narrative is therapeutic. Help paralyzed people communicate. Restore independence. That is real and important work. Science Corp's current public narrative is also therapeutic, but Hodak has been more explicit about what follows. In interviews and writing, he's described neural interfaces as eventually enabling humans to process information at a fundamentally different rate. Not faster typing, not better cursor control. He's talking about cognition itself, the bandwidth of thought. He's also been direct about the competitive terrain. There are now dozens of BCI companies, BrainGate, Synchron, BlackRock Neurotech, Precision Neuroscience, among others, all working on variations of the same core problem. How do you put electrodes near neurons without causing damage? How do you sustain a reliable signal over years, not weeks? Science Corp's bet is that the eye is the right first market, and that the eye-brain connection is, structurally, a prototype for the larger brain interface challenge. The retina is central nervous system tissue. It's accessible, it's relatively well mapped, and if you can build a reliable photovoltaic interface with the retina that works for years without degrading, you've learned something that generalizes outward. Every BCI company faces the same wall. The brain is not a stable target. Electrodes placed in neural tissue eventually get encapsulated. The body treats them as foreign objects. Scar tissue forms. The signal weakens. Neuralink's first patient, Noland Arbaugh, encountered this directly. Some of the electrode threads retracted from brain tissue after implantation. Neuralink's software team compensated algorithmically. The signal was partially recovered, but the underlying problem did not disappear. This is the engineering reality of invasive BCI that press releases rarely lead with. The biology fights back. Every time. Science Corp's retinal approach sidesteps some of this. The subretinal space is more biologically stable than cortical tissue. The implant isn't threading into the brain proper. That makes Prima a more tractable near-term engineering problem, and a safer one for regulatory purposes. But Hodak's larger stated ambition requires solving the biology eventually. No software correction can compensate for a degrading cortical interface indefinitely. If you want to write signals to the brain reliably for 20 years, you need a material and biological interface that holds for 20 years. Nobody has built that yet. Hodak seems to know this. His public writing suggests his view is that the only way to solve it is to keep implanting, keep gathering longitudinal data from real patients in real bodies, and iterate. The eye is step one. It proves the technology. It funds the next step. Here's what I think the standard coverage of this space consistently gets wrong. The dominant narrative frames BCI as a horse race, Neuralink versus the field, Musk versus the establishment, speed versus caution. That framing isn't entirely wrong, but it misses the deeper structural question. Brain-computer interfaces are not going to be decided by who has the biggest funding round or the most famous backer. They will be decided by whoever solves long-term biocompatibility. Specifically, how do you build an implant that can live inside neural tissue for decades without the body quietly dismantling it? Max Hodak left the most well-funded, most visible BCI operation on Earth. He didn't join a larger competitor. He started from scratch, acquired a French company building implants for elderly people going blind, and began building a product for a disease most technology media doesn't cover. That is not the move of someone trying to beat Neuralink at its own game. That is the move of someone who disagrees with Neuralink's sequencing. The eye-first strategy is also a technical argument. Hodak appears to believe that the path to durable brain interfaces runs through low-risk, biologically stable implants, not through threading electrodes into motor cortex of paralysis patients as the primary learning mechanism. Build the implant that works for 15 or 20 years in the subretinal space. Understand what the body accepts and what it rejects. Then scale inward. That is a patient strategy in an impatient industry. It may be wrong. Medical timelines have a long history of humiliating confident forecasts. But it's a coherent intellectual position. And it's coming from someone who was inside Neuralink long enough to see what the approach looks like from the inside. The man who left might be cautious. Or he might be the one who saw further down the road. Two people helped build Neuralink. One stayed to push electrodes toward the cortex. The other left to start with the eye. A decade from now, one of those bets will look obvious in retrospect. Right now, neither is.